Welcome to Behind the Smile with Ash Butterss, a podcast designed to reveal the truth behind the masks we wear. Together, we look to demystify the human mind and its behaviours in relation to mental health, trauma and addiction. My name's Ash and I'll be your host as we uncover the real stories of people's pain and the steps they've taken to live a life of freedom in recovery. From sobriety to spirituality, join me each week as we uncover the reasons why people seek recovery and how their lives have changed by living one day at a time. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Behind the Smile. Today's guest is Jen Hirst. Jen is a fellow sober human who helps women boost their confidence in sobriety by implementing healthy habits from the start. Throughout her almost 10 years of living alcohol-free, she has prioritized the importance of taking care of yourself in all aspects of sobriety, from how much sleep you're getting, to light therapy, to morning routines. Jen preaches that exercise ensures her sobriety stays strong, because if you can move your body today, you can stay sober today. Her group coaching programs have helped hundreds of women own their sobriety with a supportive community of women cheering them on. Jen made the decision to quit drinking on the 24th of April 2013. So by the time this episode airs, Jen will have reached 10 years of continuous sobriety. So with that, I'd love to welcome Jen onto Behind the Smile. Hey, Jen, how are you doing today?
Good. Thank you so much for inviting me on here to share with your audience. And when you said 10 years, I almost like got a whiplash of like, oh my gosh, it's just crazy to say 10 years of sobriety, of where I was to where I am today. It's completely different. So
it's a massive milestone. I have to ask, does it feel like it was yesterday or does it feel like it was a lifetime ago?
Both. Honestly, it feels like a lifetime ago, quite honestly, because we're two different people, completely different people. And I really like to say, yes, I got sober on April 24th, 2013, but also there's another pivotal point in my sobriety of where I really started to share about it because I kept it hidden and a secret for 4 years. I didn't talk about it. People didn't really ask me about it. I didn't share about it because I didn't think people wanted to know. So I believe it's September 7th of 2017 is the day I came out on social media.
Wow.
And that, I didn't say everything shifted, but once I came out, that began the path of me sharing more, me becoming more comfortable with my own sobriety and receiving that encouragement and support and that interest in other people based on what I posted and to going into people's inboxes, into women's inboxes, asking me questions, asking myself, well, maybe there's something here. Maybe, I don't know, maybe this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so it really got me to thinking over the course of 2017 to 2020 of, I think this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm not supposed to be designing. I'm a graphic designer, went to school for that, but I don't think I'm supposed to be designing sales sheets and logos, even though I love that stuff. I think I'm supposed to help women get sober based on what I've done. But it also, again, that post and the posts I began to do just, again, increased my confidence in my own sobriety and allowed myself to be okay with it and accept it and be proud of it. So I really started to embrace this about myself because I knew by me being open about it, it was also helping other women. Even though I wasn't a coach yet, I was also getting and messaging with people and chatting with them and talking with them of this is what you're going through. And that just really led me to what I do now full time, which is crazy because the one thing I felt I never wanted to talk about, but I also wanted to talk about it. I had so much built up inside over the course of 10 years that when I just started and I kind of ripped the gates open, it just poured out of me and I just couldn't stop writing. I was just like, this is my experience. And that changed the direction of my life, which is so cool because you never really know what's going to happen until you give something a shot.
What was it for you that was holding you back for that first 4 years from sharing your story publicly?
What other people would think. I grew up in a perfectionist family where outside images were very important of externally. And something I really carry with me, I've had to do a lot of work in these past 5 years mentally over not caring what other people think, because I knew based on my experience that I could look the part, but it was destroying me inside. And we can get into that, into my story and my picture, that I looked like I had it all together. And that's why when people were aware of what was going on, they didn't believe my husband. They were like, no, Jen doesn't have a problem. She's never done this. Well, no, they didn't really see what I was doing when no one was looking. I was really good at hiding it. And so I didn't share about that because my pride was too big, and I cared too much of, if they knew this about me, it would damage my image. They'd look at me like an alcoholic, and I'm weak. And I'm someone who's an overachiever. I got good grades in school. I'm an Enneagram 3, so I always try to achieve, which has also got me into some addictive patterns of workaholism and perfectionism and things like that. But I just placed that worth of, if they knew that about me, oh my God, because I put my value in other people's opinions. And so it got to the point, for some reason, I came across this post on Facebook, scrolling at night. I had my son, I was popping out a couple kids in my sobriety, and I saw this post of a transformation for Beachbody. And that was really, I owe Beachbody, now Body, everything, because they gave me the confidence to start sharing about my sobriety. Because part of the reasons of becoming a coach, and I didn't post a lot of anything on social media, just some cute pictures of my kids, things like that. But part of being a coach, and there was something about this post that intrigued me. And I always loved fitness, and I always loved to take care of myself. And I said, well, there's something why I'm following this random woman and going with her to this summit. Maybe I should start coaching, which is so weird, because I just thought, oh, coaches are just trying to sell things. But I did it because I knew there was something there. I was following along for some reason. And it was through that, within 2 weeks of signing up, part of your job as a coach is to start sharing your story authentically on social. I'm like, oh, this is weird. I never took pictures of myself. I had to start taking pictures of myself. I was someone who hid behind the camera because I didn't like how I looked. I had just had my second kid. And it really got me uncomfortable with, okay, I need to start taking pictures of myself. And I told my husband, I said, I think I need to come out about my sobriety on social. I can't expect someone to trust me if they don't know this huge part of my story. And so I just did it on September 7th, 2017. And I love when it pops up every single year. And I just wrote it in less than 5 minutes. And I just poured it out. It's just a hello, I'm Jen. I'm an alcoholic. And I use the term alcoholic. I don't really use that today, just as I'm rethinking the whole sober movement. And I just wrote my heart out in 3 paragraphs, and I just put send, or a post. And I ran into an AA meeting, and I didn't want to look at my phone. And I came back, and I had hundreds of messages of love and support, and we're so proud of you. And once I did that, I felt like this huge weight had been lifted off my chest. Like I didn't have to hide anymore. I didn't have to sneak around, and it was like this hush hush secret of why I wasn't there, why I wasn't getting invited to things, what we don't talk about. It just released it. And then from that moment on, I stopped really being afraid. I didn't pour every single post was about sobriety. It was all about, honestly, helping women lose weight. I was trying to lose the baby weight with something that made it manageable to do at home. But the more and more I posted, the more and more engagement I got and messages I got about my sobriety. And I was like, well, okay, I guess I should be sharing more on this. And it was over the 3-year progression where my posts went from working out, losing weight, into how to stay sober, how I'm staying sober, how exercise is a huge part of my sobriety, how I do it with 2 kids, what I do in my day-to-day life. And then that transitions now into sober coaching and helping women lead a healthy lifestyle in sobriety, of really how to live sober and feel better. Like that's my whole spiel is you can quit drinking, but you can still eat crap and feel like crap. And so what I was doing, I was living that dry drunk lifestyle for 4 years. I was eating peanut butter jelly sandwiches. I was grabbing Skittles. I was doing this. I wasn't really taking care of myself. So what Beachbody did was lead me into changing up what I was fueling my body with, feeding my mind with personal development, which I think was one of the biggest changes that I've seen, is focusing not so much on what I looked like, but what I was taking in and how I was talking to myself. And that offered me clarity into so many things that I struggled with in my childhood and even today, of how to live and think thoughts that would help me to improve my life. And yeah, everything just shifted from that moment. And I just kind of give it up and took the signs that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. But that's, for long story short, long story long, that's why I didn't share about it. But the more and more I learned through personal development, other people's opinions are none of my business. And if someone decides to judge me for making a positive decision in my life, that's on them. Because the most important thing to me, the most important thing to my family, is for me to stay sober. Because if I don't, then I don't have those things. And if someone has an issue with that, then it doesn't bother me today, because it's the most important thing. And it's giving me all of these things that I once dreamed about when I was deep into my addiction.
Yeah. Wow. There's so much in that. And thank you so much for sharing and explaining the process you went through, where you began shrouded in secrecy and probably shame and fear of what other people would think, into really stepping into and embodying and being proud of your sobriety. And, you know, one of the big things I talk about here on the podcast is we need to remove the stigma around addiction, mental health, and trauma. And the only way we're going to do that is to have people like yourself who are, they put away the fear and they say, no, I'm going to own this and I'm going to be proud. And I think the response is indicative of what people are craving, of what people are needing. Like, there's enough people out there giving you tips on how to lose weight. There's not enough people out there talking about, I gave up alcohol and I rediscovered the person that I was meant to be here on this earth. So, such a powerful story. And thank you for that.
Yes.
I would really love for our audience just to get to know a little bit more about you before we dive into your incredibly powerful photo today, Jen. So can we kick it off with you sharing with us, where do you live and who do you live with? What does an average day look like and what do you do for fun?
Yes. So now I live in Upper Minnesota, so in a little town called Thief River Falls. We just moved here a couple years ago. I was always a big city girl, and I married a small town guy. And his prerequisite before we got married is that we're going to move to a small town. And I said, okay, yeah, right. I'm New York City. I'm big city. But the more and more after we had kids, the more and more we came up here, I just really started to appreciate how quiet it was, how simple it was. And I never imagined myself living here until I just became open to that idea. And it was more important for us to be around family and have our kids being around family than anything else. And we gave it a try, and I absolutely love it. And everyone was so concerned, oh my gosh, how is Jen going to adjust? And I was the easiest transition out of everybody. I'm like, I freaking love it here. You're surrounded by nature. There's deer in our backyard every single evening. We have chickens, like all of the farm life things. And it's been absolutely amazing. So yes, I live in a small town. I live with my husband of, how many years is it? 12? Going to be 12 years. I'm like, how many years is it? 12 years. And my two kids who are 6 and 8, a boy and a girl, who are my greatest joys. I always say they encourage me to get sober, and I stay sober so I don't lose them. They were my greatest visualization that I saw when I was in treatment. And it's amazing what can happen, because I saw them and I saw the life that I could have. And now I'm living it. I know I don't have the white picket fence, but we do have a chicken coop, and we are surrounded by trees. So that's a close second, even better. So, and things I like to do for fun. Number one is fitness. I love to work out. I love to learn. I love to read. I recently, in the pandemic, something that came out of the pandemic is gardening. I love to garden. I love to go to little small festivals and arts and crafts. Just anything that's active, that gets me outside, that's personal growth conferences are one of my favorite things to do. And really just spending time with my family, going on vacations. We're going to go to Disney World for our family vacation this year, where it's been on my 5-year dream board. And I just said, screw it, we're doing it. And I'm going to do it on my 10-year sober anniversary, and it's going to be amazing. So those are the things. Yeah. Just creating these experiences for my kids and for us, and really keeping in tune to what I like. I think that's one of the greatest benefits of sobriety, is that you really get to know who you are, like you said, and what you truly enjoy, and to honor that. And that it's okay if you don't like something. You just got to find out what you do like and try new things. So, but yeah, every day it's different. Who knows if I try something new tomorrow and I'll love it.
I completely agree. It's crazy. When you stop drinking, it's like all of a sudden you create space for not only who you are authentically as a person, but the things that you like and dislike. And what you just said there, like, is really important, is also the things that you don't like. And then what's really cool is we get the ability to start to say no to things that we don't like. And I find that the more you are able to be true to yourself, the more you sit in this space of comfortability. Whereas when you're in active addiction, you're in uncomfortability the majority of the time. And so it makes sense to seek out a drink or a drug, because you're looking to get outside of your body, outside of that discomfort. But when you're living in authenticity and you're making decisions that are based in honesty and you're holding healthy boundaries, then that need to get outside of yourself is diminished.
Yes.
Jen, I'd love to dive into your photo now. So I've asked you to bring in a photo today from a time in your life where you are hiding behind a smile. Your insides didn't match your outsides, so you were projecting one version of yourself to the outside world. But the reality was you were really struggling on the inside. For our audience who are listening but cannot see the photo, you can head to the website ashbutters.com. But in the meantime, could you please explain to the audience what this photo looks like and what's actually happening for you at that time in your life?
Yeah. And I always like to say looks are deceiving. And I was really good at hiding it. And when I post before and after pictures, people are often surprised, because they're like, you don't look like an addict. You don't look like an alcoholic. I know. That's my exact point, because you never really know what's going on with someone. So please be kind. And when I came out, that's why everybody was so surprised. So that morning, and I really like to think of the year leading up to my wedding, was really when it went downhill. I was working full time. As I said, I was a classic workaholic, Enneagram 3. I was working full time. I was doing freelance full time. I was planning my wedding all by myself, because I was a perfectionist. No one can do it as good as, or to my standards. So I'm just going to burn out myself and then do it my way. And so I was just around the clock working for a year, kind of start, stop, drinking at night to relax and to have fun. That was my way of having fun. Little did I know of what I was creating and how much anxiety that was producing. And I just remember a couple weeks leading up to the wedding in college, my college roommates had some Adderall, and I did not know how I was going to get everything done. And so I said, well, if I could find someone with some Adderall, then I could get everything done. I could lose a bunch of weight before my wedding. And so I did. And so the couple weeks leading up to that, I was taking Adderall during the day. I was drinking at night, because when the Adderall wore off, my anxiety shot up. And so I would drink to try to relax me, to go to sleep. And then my anxiety would be high the next day. I'd take Adderall, and I got everything done. I was like superhuman. I got everything done. Everything was going great. I was just full of anxiety, and I was crumbling inside, and I didn't know how I was going to get through it. And waking up, I had blacked out. Actually, I don't think I've ever told anybody this. I blacked out the night before my wedding. I was blacking out nightly. I was drinking vodka, and I was still the day to the day leading up to my wedding. I was trying to put together the favor boxes by myself, and no one was helping, nor did I ask for anybody's help. because I didn't want to inconvenience someone. I was just going to do it myself to please everybody because my parents wanted this big wedding. And so I passed out. I somehow got my alarm set up, and I woke up, and I was supposed to meet the bridesmaids in the morning. And I opened the fridge and I took a big swig of vodka. I popped my Adderall to give me the energy to get through the day. I tried to depuff my eyes. I was supposed to take a shower the night before. I passed out, so I don't remember that. And so I hurried up and showered because the hairdresser didn't want my hair all fresh. And just full of anxiety. And so the whole day, I wish I could do a do-over. It's really hard for me to look back on my wedding day because I wasn't there. I was just saying, if you can just get through today, you'll be okay. Just get through it. Because as an introvert, I don't like the spotlight on myself. I hate it. And when you're a bride, the spotlight's on you. And that gave me incredible nerves and incredible anxiety. And so I was functioning well throughout the day. I would take sips of whiskey or vodka or wine to try to moderate and just help to calm my nerves. Again, I was just trying to calm my nerves. My anxiety was super high. Adderall was not helping, but it was allowing me to function in a way where people didn't they didn't know what was going on. And so I went through the motions, did all that, but in my wedding pictures, you can see my pupils are extremely dilated from the Adderall. I blacked out. Once we got to our hotel room, had a bunch of people in our hotel room, and I don't remember how I went to sleep. So it was a day or two after that. My husband had no idea what was going on. I was really good at hiding it. But in this past month leading up to my wedding, I was questioning, I was Googling, am I an alcoholic? What do I do? I was giving myself not ultimatums, but games. Okay, if you can go 2 days without alcohol, you're fine. You're not an alcoholic. You could go 5 days. And I couldn't make it past a day or two. And I'm like, oh my God, what is going on? And so a day or two after that, I was expected to go back to work, to go back to my normal life. And I was by then completely exhausted and I just gave up. I started drinking around the clock. I did not hide it anymore. I did not get out of bed. I didn't show up to work. My husband was trying to figure out what is going on with me. I just married her and now she's drinking around the clock, and began my process of going to my first AA meeting. And in this time, I was also dabbling into different forms of alcohol. So my drink of choice at that time, or actually after that, I dabbled into mouthwash and all of these rubbing alcohol, different things. This is just how big my craving was and how bad my cravings got and my addiction got. And began the 1.5 year process of going into treatments, into inpatients, outpatients, all of that, until that ultimately led me to my sobriety date. So it's hard for me to look back, and I even watch my wedding video because I remember exactly how I was feeling and how nervous I was, and how I kept saying, just get through the day, get through the day, get through the day, just drink, get through the day. And so I was smiling and I looked great, but inside I was absolutely a mess.
Yeah, all of that, the reality of what was really going on for you. Jen, firstly, thank you so much for sharing that part of your story. And I honestly cannot tell you how much I resonate with that. I used to steal my ex-husband's ADHD medication, Ritalin, and I would crush it up and I would snort it so that I could get jobs done, so that I could be more efficient. Because, of course, if you don't have ADHD and you take the medication, it fires you up. And it was almost like speed. And I would just race around and I would use it to clean the house. I would use it to get extra work done or work on a project. And it was this self-medicating, which I didn't even realize at the time was bad. It just seemed really logical. I almost felt like I'd found the golden ticket. Like, hey, look what this does. So I totally understand the link with the Adderall. And then blacking out the night before your wedding, similar story for me. I swore to myself that I wouldn't drink or use the night before my wedding, and sure enough, I did. And I don't remember getting to bed. I think I had a few hours sleep. I woke up with a hangover and I was hungover for my entire wedding day, which it just blows my mind. And I think it really highlights the power of addiction, because I was willing to mess up this day that I had probably been thinking about for 25 years. And it makes you feel really sad to think that that's the position that I was in. And so I really relate to that as well.
Yeah. You know what's brought me to tears? Just you saying that. And I think a lot of brides are, and I would like to even think of something to help brides move through social anxiety on their wedding day and not turning to alcohol to get through it. And like you said, regretting and looking back at your wedding day and not being able to remember it. And I remember waking up the next day, and when we got our video back, of trying to piece together the night of, oh my God, did I do anything stupid? I don't remember who I was talking to. And this is my wedding day. And I couldn't remember conversations and how scary that is. So I remember looking at our video, and someone was taking video at the end of the night, and I was there, but I was not there. I'm like, okay, there I was. I looked okay. I wasn't making a fool out of myself. And okay, well, everybody else was drinking, so maybe they don't remember. And I mean, just the anxiety of not being able to remember and being in control of yourself. But again, on this day that's supposed to be so memorable, and then we're drinking because we're so nervous. Yeah, it's just something that needs to be addressed.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I'd love to know, let's go back for a minute. You mentioned that your addiction really kicked off around that time that you were getting married. But as we know, alcoholism and addiction, they're progressive. When did it all start for you? I'd love to know a little bit more about, can we go back to your childhood for a moment, Jen? What were you like as a little girl? Was there much alcohol around as you were growing up? And when did it really sort of start to kick off for you?
Yeah. So again, I was raised in a perfectionist family. I came from a great home. I don't fit the normal alcoholic upbringing, not normal, but stigmatized
Yes.
And so my parents, I got good grades. I came from a great home. My parents rarely drank. They had liquor and beer, but they would have one. They'd be like, oh, Judy, 2 is too much. No. And so I didn't see my parents do that, but they always had liquor. But my grandfather was an alcoholic, and my mom grew up with that. She grew up with an alcoholic father who got sober. So she did see him also get sober, but she also had some growing up to do at a very early age because her father was not there and so wishy-washy with his behavior. So she knew firsthand what it was like and how scared she was for me, seeing me go through it as well. But I had my first drink at 15. I was not addicted from the start. We raided my parents' cabinet during a sleepover, had 13 shots, hungover, just like, what the hell? And I didn't love it. I thought it was disgusting. And so I did what I like to call normal childhood drinking, not childhood, but throughout high school and college. And I like to say in my story that there was a turning point after going through my usage history and writing out my history. There was a point when I was 21 when my second boyfriend wanted to go on a break. And that's really where it started, of switching it. And because my roommates at the time were guys, they had a prescription to Adderall and they would abuse it. And they're like, here, if you take this, you're going to feel like God. You're going to feel amazing. You're not even going to think about him. And my heart went back to my first boyfriend and how much pain I felt. And I didn't know what to do with myself. And oh my gosh. So I'm like, okay, screw it. Anything to get me to not feel this anymore. I'm so sick of feeling like this. So I did it and I felt amazing. I dyed my hair. I stayed up all night. I thought this is the best breakup ever. And then the withdrawal came and the loneliness. But that moment, I was like, no way, I can take away any pain or anything I'm feeling with alcohol. I can just drink and then I never have to feel it again. And so that's what I started to do. I would start using it before I go out because I have social anxiety. I'm shy, and that's okay. I've recently come to terms with it's okay to be an introvert. It's okay to be shy. I would do it before a date. I would do it if, I made a mistake or I drank too much. I would just drink. I would do it if I was by myself, and I just started medicating like you and I were talking about. I would just start to self-medicate anytime life got hard. And it was so from that moment up until the day I got sober was a 10-year progression of it just started to slowly increase. And there were moments where I would stop a little bit, but it just, again, the year before my wedding, 2010 to 2011 was a year it really ramped up, where I was really starting to use it to cope with stress, to cope with overwhelm, to cope with burnout, until I was physically addicted and I could not stop. And I was a person who really got withdrawals because of how much I was drinking. I get shaky hands. I started to almost have cardiac arrest a little bit. All of these things started to happen. And I also got a couple DWIs in this period. On 2005 and 2013, I got my second DWI. So consequences, but that wasn't enough for me to turn my life around. I would like to say there were data points in my journey of, okay, wow, I've really got to take a look at my drinking here. But that just wasn't enough for me. I'm someone that had to push it and push it and push it until I physically felt myself dying. As someone who, again, got good grades, I came from a great childhood. This stuff isn't supposed to happen to me. And my justification for my behavior, my denial, kept me drinking for many years because I didn't fit that picture that I thought. I'm like, I can do this. I can do this. And if I can do this without anyone knowing, then no one has to know this about me. It doesn't tarnish my image. I'm still that Jen who can do everything. I'm superhuman. But inside, I was just crumbling with this internal battle of start, stop, start, stop, start, stop. And I just couldn't do it until I finally surrendered. And I said, I'm literally going to die unless I get sober, unless I stop. And by that point, when I entered my second detox day, I started losing things too. I said, well, that's not happened to me. I was a high functioning alcoholic. Well, then I lost my job. Then I lost my car. Then I was on the verge of losing my husband. And then I was on the verge of losing my health. And I'm like, and I like to say it's a shift in mindset. It was a decision. And I just said, my God, woke up in detox from a blackout. And I said, I blew a 0.34. And I was like, okay, that's high. It's not the highest I've heard. But at the same time, it scared me because I had been drinking like that for 2 to 3 years. And how many other times was I drinking way more than that? 100. And it really scared me. And I'm like, if I don't do this, I'm going to lose everything. And I didn't want it anymore.
Yeah, wow. It's almost that, I was just chatting to our friend Brad about this last night. It's that gift of desperation, that point that you get to where there's just no other alternative.
Yeah.
What you also really highlighted for me there, which I think is so important to pause on, is that notion of, Gabor Mate talks about it when he says it's not why the addiction, but why the pain. And it's such a misconception that addicts and alcoholics drink and use because they like it or they want to. Maybe that's how it starts out, sure. But when it gets to that point where we lose the choice, the option of choice, it's so often because we're trying to heal trauma or mask a pain that is so deeply ingrained inside of us. And so the decision to give that up, despite the consequences, like you can see the consequences, what's going to happen every time you pick up a drink, but you continue going back because the thought of having to do life without this crux, without this support that we've used for years and years is almost too much to bear. And it reminds me of this saying that I heard once where they talk about, change comes when the pain of staying the same outweighs the pain of the change itself. That's it. We have to get to that point where we just absolutely cannot live another day in the cycle of addiction. And that's where that gift of desperation, I think, comes from.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I always picture, if I could just have a mental image, and maybe I could just create it, of like, I always felt like I was in a hole. Like in my last days, I was like, I feel like I'm in a deep hole and I have no idea how to get out. I'm going to start crying, but I've dug myself so deep and I have so many things on my shoulders of a DWI, of all this, and this person's mad at me, this is this, and I just don't know how I'm going to get out. And it got to a point where I just said, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm just not going to drink. And as long as I don't drink, it can't get any worse. And so I think it's about letting go, surrendering, letting go. And yeah, for the past 3 years of my drinking, it was not for joy. It was to honestly feel normal, to give me a break from my thoughts, to take me away from myself, to escape. And then I was just honestly started drinking to make my withdrawals go away. And so the only thing, and this is what makes addiction or drinking so dangerous, is because when alcohol, it's a depressant, it makes you feel low. And when I felt so low that I didn't even want to live anymore, I don't make the best decisions. It's not the point where I'm like, I'm going to go for a workout. No, when I'm in that low, in that deep hole, the only thing that sounds good is to take me away from reality was a drink. But I know that was not going to help me, but I didn't know what else to do. And so that's what makes it so, because the withdrawals were so intense. I was in such a deep hole. And when I'm mentally there, I don't know, my best tool was to drink, was because that was the easy way. That was just like, I'm just going to do this. I don't know what else to do. So, yeah.
What was your experience like in treatment? Because you went a couple of times, didn't you?
Yeah, I went to treatment. Well, I started with outpatient, as I think a lot of people do. I was really nervous that I was going to lose my job if I took 30 days to go to Hazelden. Like they're going to fire me, but you are protected, FMLA. So I started with outpatient, and that wasn't enough. I knew I needed, and deep down I knew I needed inpatient. And I went through to Hazelden. I was so scared. And I looked online, like, let's look at the place. I'm really nervous. I don't know anybody there, but it was honestly one of the best experiences of my life. I love treatment. If you have the insurance is tricky because they cut me off when I was there. That's another topic. But if you can make that happen, I would highly encourage it. And I went for 30 days, but I also had the inclination that I was going to drink again. I'm like, I feel great, but I think I just have one more in me. And I loved it. And I honestly felt safe. I was in a safe place. I was around women who are just like me. And you had a set schedule. You didn't have to think about meals. You had your meals taken care of. You heard from sobriety. It was like I was going back to college, and I felt amazing. And then you go back to reality. Like, I don't have all of that now. I'm not safe. And so I went back 30 days later because I relapsed the day after I got out. I went to their 60-day program at Hazelden, it's called Lily. Absolutely loved it. And again, had the inclination of, I'm just going to take Adderall when I get out. I just wasn't ready. And that's what I like to tell people is when you get sober, you have to have two things. You have to really want it, and you got to be ready. I really wanted to stay sober. I really wanted sobriety, but I was not ready. I had to do some field research for me to really I cannot have just one drink. I cannot have just one pill of Adderall because it led me back to exactly where I left off. And I had to go through those experiences for me to get to a point where I was officially done. Because I went to treatment in August 2012. I did not get sober until April 2013. So I went to 2 inpatients, got out, went to outpatients, the whole treatment plan, aftercare plan. And then it wasn't until I made that decision on April 23rd, 2013 that I was done, actually April 24th, because I was sober when I made it, that I was done and went to my final inpatient stay at the retreat in Wayzata, Minnesota. Highly recommend it. It's an amazing place. I wanted something different and less structured. It was more low key. Again, an amazing place, a 30-day stay, but everything got so much easier once I made that decision. And again, this treatment is an amazing place. You have curriculums, you study, depending on what treatment center you go to, you either work the steps or you do something else. They had downtime, structured downtime with no TV. So you had to figure out what to do when you're bored, which I think is very, very smart. I moved my body. Again, I didn't have to cook meals. I just got to focus on myself. And I think that's what everyone needs. If you can make that work for you, is a place where you feel safe, a place for you to feel grounded, to have some space between you and your last drink, and to really focus on yourself. So I highly encourage it if you can make that go. But I had the best experiences in there.
That structured downtime, what a great idea, like you said, because that's one of the big things, isn't it? Particularly in early recovery is the boredom and knowing what to do, because we're so used to the chaos and the acceleration of life when you're in active addiction, that learning just to be able to sit with yourself in peace and quiet. In the beginning, I found that really, really difficult. And in a similar story, I was in an inpatient treatment, so I didn't have any other option. There was no TV. We didn't have our phones. And so you had to learn how to sit with yourself, journal, read a book. In saying that, we weren't even allowed fiction in there. They had to be either 12-step literature or something that was related to recovery. So,
but I really loved that. I loved that. Like, I felt like I was going back to college. I'm like, give me all the books. And one thing, now that you speak of it, one thing that I got into and that many of the women got into is knitting and crochet, because it was something to do with your hands. And so, man, I didn't have any money really to my name at the end of my journey, but I made scarves for people that year for Christmas. And that's what I would do. I would just knit. I would just knit and talk. And it was just something to keep my mind focused. So if you're thinking of just these mindfulness activities of puzzles, Legos, crochet, like things that are just keeping you busy, to kind of move you through, whether that's your witching hour or any moment, a lot of it is at night, I hear. Being alone with yourself, just being okay with being with yourself without a mind-altering substance.
And all of those activities that you just mentioned, they keep you where your hands are, don't they? So like you have to stay present in the moment when you're engaging in those activities, which is another really key to, I think, a long, sustained sobriety.
Yeah,
being able to do that. Jen, what did you learn about yourself in treatment?
Yeah, it's hard to, honestly, I think the biggest thing that I took away was that I was not alone. And part of the treatment process, I mean, especially with my DWIs, it really lessened the shame for me. Hearing other women say, yeah, I've got this. And oh my gosh, because the whole time I thought there was something wrong with me. I'm a bad person. And when I heard from other women sharing and finding commonality in that, like, okay, well, maybe it's not just me. Maybe I'm not so bad. Maybe I was just using the best tools that I could in the time, I was just using the tools that I had with where I was at the time that I was at. I was just using those tools to the best of my ability. I didn't know better. I didn't know that alcohol caused anxiety. I didn't know of the different forms of a habit and how when I feel this, I didn't know how to manage my emotions. Now, I didn't learn that in treatment. I know they had us go through meditation, but what I like to teach my women is really how to manage and feel an emotion and not need to run from it, not need to feel like you have to fix something, that you can just feel anxious and you're going to be okay. And one of the things I like to tell myself is, I'm not going to die.
Yeah.
And I know it's crazy, but it really puts things in perspective of, is this something that's literally going to kill me? Is feeling sad or having an off day going to kill me? No, I can just learn to be okay with it and find some things that will help me move through it, knowing that tomorrow is going to be a new day. So what I really learned about myself is, again, that I wasn't alone. And I had a lot of work to do based on my childhood, and also going through the steps. So in each treatment, you go through the steps. And part of that process is listing out your resentments and making amends. Initially, they want you to go through your resentments. And I realized I had a lot of resentments. And resentments are like someone living rent-free in your head. And they're going to keep coming back and keep coming back. And if you don't deal with the crap that's in your head that you get pissed about, you're going to be more apt to turn to something because you're upset about it. And so once I started to list those things and started to work through those things, it really offered myself some peace and some compassion and some acceptance of, again, my parents were also doing the best that they could with the tools that they had. And I was just doing the same, but now I know better. So I'm going to do better. And that's why I really, really encourage women to start reading, to start learning about this thing. Because if you had cancer, if you had diabetes, if you had any sort of diagnosis, you would read the treatment plan. You would probably get in a community of other survivors or other people going through it. So you got to do the same with sobriety and with alcohol. Learn how others have done it and learn about ways to help move you through this in a world that still promotes it. So you got to work on that stuff.
Yeah, it's that whole notion, isn't it, of it? It's not my fault that I have this, but it's my responsibility that I treat it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not your fault. And I like to tell it to my women. It's not my fault and it's nothing to be ashamed about, but it's up to me of the action that I take today. Am I going to go to a meeting and am I going to show up? Am I going to move my body? Am I going to drink some water? Am I going to do my gratitude? All of those things that help me stay sober. That's my responsibility. I have a choice. And when I was drinking, I lost all of that. But now one of the many benefits of sobriety is you get those options back, but it's up to you of how you show up to your sobriety. You are I just did a post. You are the CEO of your sobriety. You get to decide what that looks like. No one else can tell you how to stay sober. That is up to you to decide. So you can take how other people have done it, apply what works, and then leave the rest.
And the reality is you get out as much as you put in with this gig. Yeah, it really is. You are the creator of your own destiny on this journey.
Absolutely.
So Jen, you've mentioned 12-step a couple of times. What were some of the tools and techniques that you implemented in the early days?
In the early days, I honestly went through everything that they told me to do. And part of that process, they taught the AA steps. And so I went through all the steps. I got my sponsor. I just kept doing the next right thing. I went to my parole officer. I moved my body. That was huge. I went to my meetings. I got them signed. I went to my court dates. I had the intoxilizer or the breathalyzer in my car. But I honestly didn't have a car at the time. And so I would ride my bike to treatment. I would ride my bike I got a job at a local printer shop because I was laid off from my job. So I did that to make ends meet for the time being and give myself the opportunity and space and time to go through the outpatient treatment process without becoming overwhelmed with work. Becoming overwhelmed with work is one of my biggest triggers. And so I'm really cognizant to not take on too much too fast. And so that was really my lifestyle. Is I was living this, I was going to meetings, but I also thought that I was living a dry drunk lifestyle in those first 4 years because I wasn't drinking. I was going to meetings here and there, but I wasn't really working towards feeling better. And I was still really ashamed about my history with it. And so once I came out and once I started personal development, I really started using some tools that help keep me sober today, of moving my body in some form every single day, whether that's going for a walk outside. And that's something that I started in treatment. I would make sure I moved my body. I went on a lot of walks. I went on a lot of nature walks. If you're looking for connection, you are not going to get it in Wi-Fi. You're going to get it in nature. Get outside and go on a walk. It's going to help you process things. And so I do that today. I go outside. I get some sunlight. I process difficult things, or maybe just release of emotions, or honestly just to help my mental health and dopamine drip. It's a great way to drip your dopamine. Essential oils. I mean, to this day, these are things that I use today. I use these every single day. I actually used one right before this. Those are like peace and calming. I do this before any podcast. I rub it on my wrist. I sniff it in just to give me the confidence. And honestly, another chance to take a deep breath. Books are huge for me. That was something I never stopped, was reading books on sobriety and medication. So I won't say much about this, but it's just honestly my experience with it is I do take medication for that. So making sure I take my medication for my anxiety. I don't think I need it anymore, I think it's time to taper off because I think I'm pretty good at my stress management, but also things like morning routine. You'll see me every day at 4:40 a.m. getting up, getting in my workouts, getting up before my family gets up. And my husband asked me the other day, well, what do you do in that time? You have like 2 hours. I'm like, oh, honey, I know you don't get it. But I do my light therapy. I pour into myself. So I always call it like fueling yourself to prepare you for the day. So that includes gratitude, reading, moving my body, all of those things that we can say we don't have time, but I really found to love my mornings and really fuel my day. Because if you can own your morning, there's a quote, if you can own your morning, you can own your day. But many other things, and I don't know if you want me to get into, but many other things that help me to feel better and help me to manage my stress on a day-to-day basis. So I don't have those huge highs and those huge lows. I just feel more consistent and balanced because of those things, like getting up and fueling myself and moving my body help me to manage it that much better.
I want to pause on the exercise part of your story for a moment. I know that exercise is a really big part of your recovery, but I've also heard you share that during that 10-year period of active addiction, you would also fall into a cross addiction of over exercising. So can you explain for our listeners, firstly, what is a cross addiction and how do you keep an eye on that today?
Yeah, well, it can be different for many people, whether that's cross addicting into pills or crossing into a different drug. For my instance, it's cross addicting into many things that are done to excess and something that you feel regret about and probably that you shouldn't be doing. Many people, when they get sober, in my experience, can cross addict into exercise, of searching for something to fulfill that dopamine response that alcohol gave, that artificially high level, and going and feeling those things in other areas. So that can include online shopping, that can include gambling, it can include sex, it can include exercise, anything that gives you that dopamine reward, and doing that to an excessive extent. And yes, during those 10 years, there was a period when I was out in New York City where I wasn't drinking much. But I also started running. And my God, that running helped me to drop weight. And I thought if I could drop weight, people wouldn't realize how lonely I was. They would see, man, Jen's doing really good out there. And so it got me to become obsessive about it. And I would cancel things with other people. And I would feel anxiety if I couldn't get a workout in. And what made me realize this was that I would go and run for 2 hours in the morning. I would go work, and then I'd go to the gym for 2 hours after work. So I was working out for about 4 hours a day. Wow. And I knew that that wasn't normal, but I also knew in order for me to achieve that body of a size 2, that was what was required of me. And my body is just not meant to be a size 2. It's meant to be the size that I am, or whatever size that makes me feel happy and healthy. And so, yeah, and it's something I just recently started talking about because I've heard you can actually go into it with food too. In early sobriety, I was also finding times where I would binge on food because I also felt this need to this is the only way I can describe it. I was trying to fill a hole inside. And I would just if I could just eat and it was like granola bars, these chocolate chunk granola bars. And I would have 6 or 7. And I would just do that as a way to just keep eating. And I was pumping for my son. And I didn't know why I was doing it, but I was just found this almost like a little kid, I'm just going to sneak that same addictive behavior of hiding granola bars and eating them. And then I would feel regret and remorse after it. And I realized once I started Beachbody coaching that I didn't feel that need anymore. I didn't feel that need to escape or to punish or hurt myself because I found that through helping people. But I never knew that was what the whole was. I just felt like I wasn't fulfilled is what I'm really now within the last day realizing that I wasn't fulfilled in what I was doing and that helping others, I found my purpose where I wasn't looking externally for something. It was all internally, but I was trying to cope with it with these external things. But I think it's something to just be aware of, not something to get it concerned about, but just something to be aware of. I think awareness with anything is key, and asking, what is my intention for moving my body? I mean, today and they even classified me with an eating disorder in Hazelden because I was over-exercising. And that's really what it's called, over-exercising. And I keep that in check, and I don't feel the need to over-exercise because I'm not wanting to look a certain way or fit into a pair of jeans. I will do it for my mental health. And I do it because it helps me manage my anxiety. And so my intention changed over the time, where now, and I really enjoy guided workouts because it's a set time. You're following a trainer who knows what they're doing. I'm not doing 5 workouts back to back. I'm doing one 30-minute workout. 60 minutes is a little long for me today. 30 minutes is manageable, is good, and I'm not overdoing it. And I'm also listening to my body. Do I have time to work out today? Is that what's really going to help me today mentally? And maybe that's just a walk outside. And that's what my mind needs, is to get that sunlight and that fresh air, and just to get outside. And both have tremendous benefits for my mental health. So
Thank you for sharing that and explaining that. I know that I relate a lot to that myself. Now, you and I share a really similar passion for implementing healthy habits in sobriety. What are some of the other healthy habits? I know you talk about sleep and breath work and stress management. Can you share a little bit more on that?
Yes. And it's become a practice in my group coaching programs last year of giving these women from the get-go some habits to start to help women feel better in early sobriety and beyond. And many of the women that have taken my courses have continued to implement and do these habits because it makes them feel good. I like to think of these as insurance for your sobriety. And so, yes, sleep is something I value so much of, and something I continue to work on today, of not keeping my phone in my bedroom, making sure I go to bed by 9:30, not looking at screens, not eating before bed, all of those things, because sleep can affect your tomorrow. If I'm low on sleep, that is another trigger. I know I'm going to be irritable the next day. I'm going to be off, and I'm more apt to make unhealthy decisions because I'm sleep deprived. And so number one, and I like to classify in order of importance of taking care of yourself, sleep is number one.
Yeah.
Nutrition is number two. Exercise is number three. If you're not getting enough sleep, if you have a kid who's not sleeping through the night, your main priority is getting sleep. And maybe that requires you taking a nap, but you got to get your butt to bed. Yeah. It is that important. And then number two, yes, nutrition. So I don't know if that's a habit, but it's just something I continually am working towards and listening and reading on, especially as someone who's 40, who's going into perimenopause, reading of the best foods to support my hormones, the best foods to fuel my day, of healthy fats and vegetables like broccoli and cauliflower, and how your gut, what you eat and what you put into your mouth, can also affect you mentally from your anxiety. I just listened to a great Mel Robbins podcast with Dr. Mark Hyman, and I'm obsessed with him now. He did a fantastic episode. Oh my gosh, it is so great. But I'm really interested because if the easiest and most functional approach to help your body function better, and that's my main thing, is I want to treat my body with respect every single day for putting it through what I've been through, for feeding it poison, for just not taking care of it for years and years, feeding it what it's going to want to help function better, but also things like morning routine. But the things I help my women with initially from the get-go is drinking a glass of water first thing when you wake up, aiming to at half your body weight in ounces of water every single day. Make sure you're flushing those nutrients and carrying those nutrients to the cells in your body. Reading 5 pages of a sober book every single day, physical book. moving your body. Well, there's a guided plan of how to do this, because I don't want to say work out every single day. I don't think that's sustainable. But move your body in a way, 20 to 30 minutes, if you can, of some sort of movement. Get outside, go on a walk. Gratitude, something I do every single morning. And when I say gratitude, I like to say small things. I like to think of the past 24 hours. What are 3 to 5 things from the past 24 hours that brought you joy? And once I started to do this 5 years ago, everything started to shift. It's easy to say things like my health, my sobriety, my family, which are all great. But when I started getting specific, I started to look for those things in my day of what were those things that really helped me out. Yesterday, my daughter going to dance class. Oh, I was really excited yesterday because her leotard and her shoes came just in time right before her dance class. She was so excited. Like those little things. And when I say specific, because so often we can go through our day and not even notice those signs and those things that are coming into our life to make our life a little bit easier. And once you get sober and once you actually start to look for it and develop a practice of it, you're going to start to notice those things. And you're going to start to be on the lookout for what's going right instead of complaining about what's not. And so overall, you're going to change your brain to become a happier person because you're always looking for the good in things. And so those are the 4 things. And the 5 things is checking into a group. So they always check into my groups. But those are just some of the 5 habits that I really instill of things that keep me grounded. But again, those morning routines, even if I'm on vacation, I do some form of a morning routine, whether it's 5 minutes just to myself to ground myself.
I love that. And, the really cool thing about everything you shared then, Jen, is you can do all of that for fun and for free. There's nothing holding you back from being able to implement all of those little tools and techniques into your life today, whether you're sober or not, really.
Yeah. Water, right? Get out a notebook and a piece of paper. Do your gratitude. Move your body if you're able. If you're injured, yoga, stretching, walking. Don't overcomplicate it. Just get out and do something and move your body in some way.
I love that. Let's talk about doing the work in the off season, because this is, again, it's something that I've heard you share about. And I love the idea of this. I think it's so, so important. Like for me, I think of it as like, I have this spiritual bank that I keep depositing into so that on the days I really need to withdraw and lean back into that, I've got something there. What does it look like for you?
Yes, I love that analogy too. It's about these daily deposits. And so often we can go through life, and when something throws us off, we're like, what can we do? What do I need to do? Maybe I need to journal. Maybe I need to exercise. But I stress to my clients and I stress to everybody, it's about doing the work in the off season. So when things are good, when things are going well, when you have time, it's about being consistent on those things that keep you sane and keep you grounded. So when life does throw you a curveball, when you get news unexpectedly, when you have too much to do, you can, like you said, withdraw from those deposits. And because you've been putting in the work day in and day out, not every day is going to be perfect, but you've been continually working on yourself and improving yourself, you're going to be in a better place mentally to handle those things when they do happen, and then reach for those tools because you've been doing that work. Because you're not going to get these high highs and these lows. You're going to be more balanced overall. So when those things do come up, you can take a deep breath, apply your tool. Let's take a deep breath. Let's apply those tools and handle it that much better, because that is the key to making anything stick. To the key to success is the consistency, is showing up even when it's not exciting, is showing up even when you don't want to, because you know you're going to feel so much better after you're going to do it. I sometimes don't want to get outside in 10-degree weather, -40. But I know I'm going to feel so good after. I get nervous before doing podcasts like this, before I coach, but I know I feel so good after. So if I can play the tape forward to how I'm going to feel by doing these things It can give me the motivation to do those, knowing that consistency, it's not on the days where you just feel like you need to. It's on those days that you feel good, on those days that are going right, to show up anyway.
Consistency is key, isn't it? It's really like just keep showing up every single day. I love what you said about, it's not even, there are going to be so many days when you don't want to show up for your sobriety, where you don't want to show up for your recovery. And, after you get through that first year of milestones, 30 days, 3 months, 6 months, like you're not necessarily getting the claps. You're not necessarily getting the chips, like whatever it is for you in your recovery, but you do it for yourself. And I love what you said about, and it goes back to that neuroplasticity around gratitude and reframing your mindset, is that often for me, like, if you get put into a trigger, which can come out of nowhere and your body goes into that fight or flight response, if you've got these practices, these tools that you've been doing daily, consistently over for weeks, months, and years, then that's where your brain will go. But if you don't, if you do it every other week or you're inconsistent, then your brain, when it shuts down, it's not going to have the healthy tools to go to. It's going to go back to those old bad decisions, bad behaviors that you're then going to have to, unfortunately clean up the mess, deal with the guilt, shame, and remorse. And it's just like, you don't have to do that, but you've got to put the work in.
Yeah. And what I love what you said about neuroplasticity is that, when we went to that habit of drinking, whether that's at 5 p.m. or anytime life got hard, you're ingraining that into your brain. So in order to, again, repair your brain and create that neuroplasticity, the more you do something, the deeper the groove is going to be in the brain. So when you are faced, again, like you said, that fight or flight response, now because you've been doing this thing for so long, the groove is so deep because you've been driving over it and working out. I work out. I do my gratitude. I breathe. I take a deep breath and do my box breathing. I know which path I'm going to take and which one I'm going to turn down because the path is so clear now. So you just got to shift the emphasis. But the deeper and the more repeated that you do in action, you are training your brain to rewire itself and to choose that healthier option when life hits the fan.
Yeah, I love that. Jen, there's one final question that I would love to ask you. I finish with this question with all my guests, and I love the different responses that I get. So this question is, what are your 3 non-negotiables that allow you to live a life today that is happy, joyous, and free?
Oh, I love that. I think honesty. I think honesty is the key to, I actually have 4 probably, but honesty is the key that led me to finally getting sober. And honesty is the key that keeps me sober today. Am I honest in what I'm doing? Am I honest with other people? And just keeping honest. Movement is definitely one of my non-negotiables. I only put it off unless I really need a rest day, but I know it's one of my non-negotiables for keeping my stress at bay. And my morning routine, really staying consistent with that. And also allowing myself downtime, allowing myself that time with family and connecting with my family, by giving myself that downtime to not work, to keep that balance, to not be on all the time, to give myself that time to be off as much as I'm on is so, so important. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Jen, if people want to find out more about the incredible work that you do in the sober space, where can they find you?
Yes. So I like to hang out on Instagram. So you can look me up at Jen Hirst. Over there, I like to hang out. I try to post every single day. I also have a website, join the lighthousesobriety.com, which has all of my programs that are coming up and a little bit more about me and how to sign up for my Sunday email and all of the things.
Incredible. I'll make sure that I pop all of that info in the episode show notes. We say here on Behind the Smile that when we recover loudly, no one needs suffer in silence. So thank you once again for joining me here today, for sharing your story and all of the incredible work that you do. Thank you, Jen.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
A big thank you for tuning in today. If you'd like to support the show, you can do so by clicking the subscribe button and leaving a review. Every review helps this podcast become more discoverable, meaning more people can hear these stories of strength and hope. Together, we will continue to remove the stigma around mental health, trauma, and addiction. Remember to reach out to those you care about, and I'll see you next time.